Okay, good morning.
Good morning. My name is Brian Ellman, and this is June the 9th, 2015.
Okay. Brian, tell me, where was your family in the beginning? What were your roots before they came to South
My
Africa?
parents were both from Lithuania, and both immigrated to South Africa, where I was born. So, really, we were first generation South Africans, and I lived there for 45 years. Got married in South Africa, and had 4 children when we emigrated to America.
What caused your decision to leave South Africa in the first place?
Well, I think it was primarily political, really. The situation where I was working in Port Elizabeth, which was a scene of a lot of unrest and riots, and I felt it was not a good place for my children to grow up at that time. And we initially, the initial decision was to go to Israel, to go on Aliyah. But then financial circumstances supervened, and I had a very tempting offer to do research work at the university here, which I thought would tide us over for a few years till my finances sort of righted themselves. Unfortunately, at that time, when we were leaving, was the time of all the riots, and there was tremendous financial instability, and there was a real sort of problem at that time with my assets in South Africa.
What were you allowed to bring or to leave with?
When we left South Africa, we could only take out 30,000 rand, which was equivalent to about $45,000 at that time, and that's really all we could take. So we just abandoned everything and came to the States.
What was your family's reaction when you decided to leave? What was that like?
The remainder of my family,
The remainder.
or my family?
The family that was remaining in South Africa.
Well, they thought it was a very good idea. Everybody said, well, it's wonderful that you're going, you should get out.
Did anybody else decide to come also as well?
Oh yeah, my 2 brothers also lived in America, moved to America.
Before you or after?
After me.
Oh, and where did they settle?
Well, my one brother settled in La Jolla in San Diego, and the other brother settled in Miami, and he subsequently returned to South Africa 2 years ago.
Oh, what made him make that decision?
There's something that's inexplicable.
What, if anything, do you miss about your homeland?
Oh, a lot. It's a beautiful, beautiful country. The climate. We had wonderful friends and a very large family when I lived there. And there was a closeness and a comfort zone that I've never actually been able to achieve here. It's very difficult to explain. You know, you can take somebody out of South Africa, but you'll never take South Africa out of the person, really. I grew up in the Free State in Bloemfontein, which is very much like Dallas. It's the middle of the country. It's high felt, so it's dry. But after I went to university, and we developed such wonderful memories of my life there.
What were your first impressions coming to Dallas? Did you come here sight unseen, or had you been here to look it over first?
I'd been here once to meet with the university people, but I really didn't know Dallas. And when I came here, that was 1978, 77, 78. We left at the end of 77, and Dallas was cow town. It was just a dusty, and I was at Parkland at Southwestern. Harry Hines Boulevard was unbelievable. It was just a strip, and there were brothels and criminals, and that's how I came to work. And Parkland was an interesting hospital. It was pretty rough actually at the time, but I came for a lot of reasons. There were many reasons, and we had trouble settling in. My wife really wanted to get to Israel, and and then my two elder children went to Israel. They were on Aliyah, and they came back for my middle son's bar mitzvah, and decided not to return to Israel. They never went back, and they didn't want to go back. So that was another sort of problem that arose. But I've been going to Israel on an awful lot, and very beautiful place. It's a wonderful country.
Did your wife find employment here as well when you came?
She actually worked for me. And she didn't work. She's a speech therapist. She died. She was a speech therapist but didn't practice here. And after I left the university and went into private practice, she ran my office incredibly efficiently. Unfortunately, she passed away, and that's a while back.
Are you still working in your field?
No, I stopped working 3 years ago.
Can you think back a little bit on the community here when you first got here? How is the Dallas Jewish community to you?
Well, when I got here, I think there were 2 South African families at that time. There was just nothing. And I went to the Orthodox shul, Ferret, and at that time there was Rabbi Zucker was there, and he was, the less said the better. He was not a very nice person, and he wasn't very welcoming, and it was very difficult because we didn't know anybody. I was working very, very hard. I really had no leisure time at all. I was working literally 18, 20 hours a day. And so we didn't have much of a social life really. And everything that we did was centered around the university, and socially there was really hardly any life. And then my kids were, at that time, the elder children were in Israel, and the youngster, at that time one was 12 and one was 7, were both good tennis players. The 7-year-old subsequently became a state champion and turned professional for a while. So we got very involved in the tennis world, and we weren't terribly involved in the Jewish world, which was probably a pity, because looking back on it, that was, it was wonderful at the time. We spent all our, any free time I had was spent around the tennis courts and with the tennis people, and dragging my sons to tennis tournaments. So we didn't really have much of a communal life, unless you call the tennis community a communal life, and that was pretty encompassing, because beside my work there was nothing else. And after my wife died, my wife became the secretary of Texas Tennis, and she was slated to become secretary of the USTA, which entailed a lot of travel up and down the world, but unfortunately she passed away, and when she did, by that time my kids had also left the tennis circle, and that left a void. That really did. It was, so we, it was an emptiness.
At that point, did you get involved in anything else?
Yes, I've been involved in APAC. I go to shul, I'm a good fellow. On, you know, I like going on Friday night, Shabbat, and Saturday is golf day, so it's difficult to go to shul. And I'm involved in the Jewish community as such. I think, you know, primarily around the APAC circle and congressional club, and you know, that's really, and I play golf.
Where are your children now?
All 4 of my children are in Dallas.
Okay, and what are they doing?
The eldest son is a interior designer. The second son is somewhat handicapped. He's got vision and hearing problems. He works at the lighthouse, Dallas Lighthouse, and I think he does cost accounting for them. I'm not sure what his function is. He's settled there. My middle son is a physician who became a physiatrist, and he physical medicine rehab, and he's been extremely successful. My youngest son was a lawyer, and then he did an MBA, and then he went to private equity, and he didn't like it. Now he owns a bunch of restaurants.
Oh, wow.
And I believe he's very successful. I think so. He seems to live pretty well. Now my the two elder children did not get married, and the young my middle and youngest son both got married, and both have 2 children each. So now
You're lucky they're all here.
That's
wonderful.
4 grandchildren wandering around. So they're all babies. The oldest is 4. So I thought I'd never have grandchildren. So, you know, and I still sort of think a lot about Israel, but wondering about things. You know, it's difficult. I've got 4 kids here, and I've got grandchildren here. My ties are not deep. I don't have deep roots in Dallas, let's put it that way. And it's pleasant, but the city has grown incredibly.
I was going to ask you, how has it changed since you got here? What have you seen?
Oh, it's remarkable. I mean, as I say, when we came here, there were a couple of restaurants, and there was, in fact, I'm a curry fanatic. I love curry, and there was one curry house on Mockingbird, I think it was, and that didn't last very long. Now there are a couple, but I mean, I'm told that Dallas has got more restaurants per capita than any other city in the country. You know that?
I believe it.
And
driving around, I believe it.
My son has a lot of them. He has a bunch of them. You know, Dallas is a huge, huge city. It's become a megalopolis, and it's, you know, I was comfortable before. I really was. When Dallas was small, and we lived in North Dallas, Gatridge Drive, when I first came here. It used to take me 10 minutes to get down to the university hospital, down the tollway, and I think it's 25 cents at that time. Now it's $1.50, and the traffic jams and the volume of traffic, and you've got to make it. You know, it was when I first came here, it was very comfortable. It was like living in a small town. You could wander around, and it was not a... Nowadays, if you want to do something, you must plan. You can't just decide I'll go uptown. It doesn't work that way. You've got to decide.
Got to plan for the traffic.
Yeah.
I know. Do you still have close family and friends left in South Africa?
Oh,
and have they
yes.
considered leaving, or are they staying there?
I have a large family in South Africa. A lot of my family have moved. As I said, my two brothers both moved to the States. A large segment of my family moved to Canada and live in Toronto. Another segment moved to Australia, and there's a bunch in Sydney. You know, when we first came here, we'd only been here a little over a year when my son had his bar mitzvah. At that time, 52 members of my family came for the bar mitzvah. So, you know, that's that, and they all came from South Africa. And I'm talking about 52 came from South Africa. The ones in Canada came here from Canada. And subsequently, a lot of them have left, and my generation, their children have all left. The younger generation are pretty much my closest relatives. The kids are in England and all over the place, Australia. I've just been in South Africa now. I just came back, and it was wonderful. It was a marvelous, marvelous. I spent 6 weeks and very happily. But there's this feeling of uneasiness. Now this is 38 years after I left, and before everybody was very comfortable, an extraordinarily comfortable lifestyle. Now everybody's behind barbed wire and up big walls, and generally, while they say they're very happy and they're all doing very well, they all say, well, this won't go on much longer. And I think to me, that's very sad.
It's unsettling also.
No, they're very, they're all, you know, I mean, everybody there is making preparation. And it's probably difficult because what I did was crazy. You don't pick up in midlife, and I went to literally start again, and that's very difficult. I mean, it's difficult, you know, when you're a refugee and you're running away from something. That's one set of circumstances. When you leave voluntarily, and you are doing something that you're giving up an extremely comfortable, good lifestyle, surrounded by a lot of family and friends, and going to start again in midlife, extremely difficult. I don't think you can ever really succeed, because you don't have the roots, the basis. I mean, the kids that you went to kindergarten with, the kids that you were at school with, you don't have that. My kids have got a lot of friends that they've made here because they were at school here, and they went to university here, and college. Not the old, you know, they managed to create a lifestyle. I'm still South African in my mannerisms, my habits, my thinking. So it's very difficult. I mean, I listen to people say that, you know, would I go, the question that's asked is, would I then go back? I said, hang on a second. I said it was wonderful, I miss it, you know, would I go back now? No.
So, along that line, describe what it was like to get your U.S. citizenship.
Well, I didn't come here with the intent of becoming a U.S. citizen. I mean, I had a green card. I was carrying 2 folders, one with Israeli papers and one with South American papers. So I had, you know, I had the avenue, the pathway to citizenship was open, and it just sort of flowed naturally. It was not something that I sort of thought this was God-given, wonderful situation at all. It just happened. I mean, in fact, when I was coming here, there was never the intent to stay here. I had no intention of staying in the States. It was not, I mean, I had a wonderful opportunity to go back to Great Britain, to England, to work at Northwick Park, which was where I'd worked before. But really, my wife and I both wanted to go and live in Israel. And, you know, it's no good saying, I wish I had, I wish I hadn't. It's the path that I followed, and has it been good? Yes. I was fairly successful. I think I was pretty successful. I built up a large practice. I had a clinic which I opened. I did some very good research work here, which is original research, and so it was financially it was good. You know, but unfortunately, after my wife died, there's a void, and I'm just sort of meandering along. Let's put it that way.
What, if any, South African Jewish traditions have you brought here with you, and do you think your children will carry them on?
Well, I go to shul on Friday night. That was a tradition that we had. And, you know, when I grew up, Friday night Shabbat dinner was very important. And we had Shabbat dinner. When we came to the States, because of this huge dislocation, my kids had a tremendous dislocation. We didn't sort of insist, and that dissipated itself. I think that's unfortunate. And I think I mean, the accent on tennis was also created a lot of difficulty in terms of Jewishness. But, you know, they say, c'est la vie.
Right.
It went.
That's it. You make choices.
Yeah. You made choice. You went along. You did think. You know, it's no good being retrospective. One has to sort of be prospective and see what can happen in the future.
So, Dr. Ellman, any closing words that you'd like to add to the interview?
No, that I was very fortunate to come to America. I'm very grateful because it's been very good for me. And I'm relatively happy here. I'm content, and I have a lot of things going on, you know. And we have. I've managed to sort of. My lifestyle is basically between my golf and my Jewish activities, pretty full. So it's been okay, actually, at the end of the day.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for doing this.
You're welcome.